Hello, choir students. I have some notes here to share with you. This is a collection of things surrounding pitch, and pitch is one of the more important things that we're going to be dealing with when it comes to using your voice in a musical way. So let's get rolling. If something is underlined, I'm going to ask you to make a note of it. If you need to pause the video at any time to do that, or if you want to do screenshots, probably writing it in your notes is going to be my strongest recommendation for you. So I'm going to get my camera out of the way here and let's get started. So we're talking about pitch, solfege, and the major scale. If it's underlined, try to make a note of it. Pause the playback if you need to do that. Pitch refers to how high or low a note or sound is. For singers, it's kind of an important thing to make sure that you're singing on the right pitch, so that you're following how the pitch goes for your melody or your harmony line. For our choir classes, the pitch is going to be assigned through the major scale, and we're going to use solfege a lot of the time. The major scale is just one of the scales that's out there. Sometimes we do songs in minor keys or modal keys, but the major scale is the starting point that we work with on a daily basis. And the major scale goes from do to do. Here's the do on the bottom. And then as you are moving to the right, you're ascending, going higher in pitch. So like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And it's built of whole steps and half steps. Notice that there's a half step between mi, fa and one between ti, do. If you can have an image in your mind of a piano keyboard, and if you were thinking of these like as the white keys and how there's a black key between them, and then if you look at the piano, there's two notes where there's not a black key between them. So that one's the half step on the piano. That's E and F, and it's B and C. All the others have a black key between them. When we say major scale, major refers to the structure and the sound of the scale, the tonality. It does not mean huge or important, like, I had a major toothache or I have a major project due or something like that. Major scale refers to the tonality. All right, and then solfege, these are the singing syllables that we use for the scale. And generally for singers, I find that this works a whole lot better. It's more singable to go do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do. If we were in the key of C, then note names aren't bad. C, D, E, F, G, F, E, D, C. Numbers work fine. But if we are using the names of the keys and we go up a half step in solfege, it's easy. You just move the solfege to whatever key you're in. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do. But it'd be like D flat, E flat, F, G flat, A flat, F. It's way too much to try to keep straight and to sing well. So that's why we use the singing scale. Also, just to share with you, you don't have to write anything from this page, but the major scale is just one kind of scale. There are other scales, including minor scales and modal scales, and that stuff is all part of another more in-depth lesson. And even though today we're using solfege as our lens through which we're going to talk about pitch, notes, intervals, and the major scale, the same rules and spacing will apply when we examine pitch and scales via note names, because we're going to get into using the ABCs on the staff. And it's also interchangeable with numbers. The major scale always has the same pattern of whole and half steps, regardless of which reading system you are applying. All other terms will still be accurate and apply when using ABC note names or numbers. Here is our solfege singing scale, oriented so that as you go up in pitch, you go up on this slide. You can see that you're going up higher. And make a note, please, of ascending is going up, descending is going down. And the scale, you can see again the half step here and here. I sort of spaced them out so that it would look like visually representing what the sound is like. So the scale keeps on extending beyond just the one octave. Very often we'll do a lot of practicing in this octave, but then if we need to go lower, it's the exact same pattern. It just continues on, sort of like the way that numbers work. You just start over. Sol, la, ti, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And the pattern continues all the way out to as high as you can sing and to as low as you can go. When we have like a do here and a do there, or you go from mi to mi, that's a distance of 8 notes. That's known as an octave. Sort of like an octagon has 8 sides. An octave is an interval or span of 8 notes. So you should probably screenshot this one, especially if you're new to choir. These are normally hanging on the wall in the front of the classroom so that we can see them pretty easily. The hand signs provide an important physical orientation. If you play an instrument, you have fingerings that you associate with the particular sounds or steps of the scale. And so it gives you some facility. It gives you, something that you can lock into kinesthetically to go along with the pitch. And so it's been studied that using the hand signs is a really productive and helpful thing for getting kids to sing in tune. I've honestly tested that theory in class and found it to be true. When I get the kids using the hand signs in a very serious way and consistently, we get much, much better at our work. So do has the fist. That is the strongest sound. So it has the strongest gesture. Now let me see here. I don't know if I can turn this camera back on. There I am. So I'm going to try to see how this works with this camera. So the do is the fist, like you can see in the picture there. Re then is going up. Mi is simply your hand being held straight across. And the hand gestures tend to be oriented to what the sounds in the scale are like the third note in the scale, the mi, is a median. It's like in the middle of your major triad. So this just kind of fits, like the symbol fits the role that note in the scale plays. Fa is the thumb going down, because fa very often resolves harmonically fa to mi, fa down to mi. So that's a very normal, common harmonic motivation as a resolution that way. So the fa points down to the mi. The so is the next strongest. The fist is the strongest, and that's the root of the scale. So is the next strongest. La gets a lift. Ti often resolves upward to do. So you've got do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And I'm trying to make the hand signs fit in the space of my little camera gap here. Generally, when you are practicing with them in class, the bottom do should be lower, and then you continue to raise your hand as you go up through the scale so that the position of the notes matches the sound of the scale. As the sound goes higher, your hand is going up higher with the gestures. I suggest you screenshot this page if you're not super familiar with these already. I know I have some students who are new. These you're going to need to know and to be able to practice in with your scale. Now, the major scale is a very specific construction, and every place that there's a whole step, there's another note in between there, right? Like if you think of the piano again, the two white keys, and then there's a black one in between there. So sometimes you'll deal with a chromatic scale or a chromatic passage in a song, or a chromatic phrase, or even just a few chromatic notes. This word, I believe that the root of the word is related to color. But this word means that you're going to be including all of the notes by half steps. Okay? So if a scale or musical passage is considered chromatic, it means it includes all of the notes by half steps. On the piano, this means you would use all of the white keys and all of the black keys in between them. In our solfege scale, where do to re is a whole step, you would include the half step note between them, and you'll see that in a moment. Other things that I want you to understand, because they're part of learning melodies and harmonies and understanding the structure of music. If we say the word interval, we're talking about the distance or space between any two notes. Do to re is an interval of a whole step. Do to mi is an interval of a third. Do to a top do is an interval of an octave. So between any two notes, there's an interval, and it could be big, it could be small, it depends on where you're at. So a step is from one note to the next scale note. A skip is any interval larger than a step. And then a half step is the smallest interval. Again, pause if you need to get things written down. So here's our singing scale again. And now I've got the chromatic notes shown on here. I suppose if you turned your screen sideways and tried to think of the piano keyboard again, you could see, well, if this was out of my way, there's a do here, do, re, mi, fa. You could think of the purple as the white notes, and then these green ones could be the black keys in between them. But generally, if you're dealing with an ascending chromatic scale, you're going to use the chromatic names on this side, descending on this side. Similarly, if it's a note that's got a sharp, like fa, with a sharp on it becomes fi, so becomes si, la becomes li, and so on. This side, if T has a flat, it becomes te, and it moves down a half step to this note. La becomes le, and so forth. The only place that doesn't work is down here with re, because it's already got that a sound to it. So that one becomes ra. I cannot tell you the history of how all that fits together. It's not quite perfect, but it's pretty close. So one funny note, ra, stuck in there. So if my song is built in a major key and it's built on a major scale, why do I care about chromatic notes? And the reason is because many songs, even those in simple keys, still include chromatic passages or some notes here and there. A composer might decide that a tonal change or maybe a series of chromatic notes creates the sound or feeling that they want in that moment. If you see a sharp, flat, or natural inserted in the music as you go along, that is known as an accidental, and the note is altered by a half step. If you see several of these in a phrase, you might be dealing with a chromatic section there, a chromatic phrase. So some more musical symbols to have familiarity with. Accidental. This is what happens when a sharp, flat, or natural appears in the music and changes the pitch of a note. It changes it from where it would normally sound according to the key signature, and the change usually lasts one measure. So I'm cruising along, I'm doing just fine, I'm in a simple major key, and then all of a sudden, boom, this note is marked flat. That flat, if I sing that note again, that measure, it's still flat. And then once you're into the next measure, the flat is gone. Or they might use a natural to cancel it out. So I think for your notes, Definitely you want to write accidental. It's underlined and know what it is. If you include at least what's in black here, I think you'll be in good shape. Definitely make a note of these symbols and what they do in the music. So if you see a sharp, it raises a note by half step. A flat kind of looks like a letter B, or maybe the bottom part looks like half of a heart. I don't know. The flat lowers a note by a half step, and then the natural, that one's fun to draw. That one cancels or erases a flat or sharp. Okay. You can, use this recording as needed to go back and review. Hopefully you'll have these things in your notes and be able to understand them and able to apply them to your music, so that as we're learning and singing and following how our parts go, and we're building an understanding of understanding music, you can comprehend these symbols and notes and concepts and plug them in there. So pitch, the major scale, solfege, ascending and descending, octave, chromatic, interval, step, skip, and half step. Those are all certain kinds of intervals. Accidental, and sharp, flat, and natural. And just as a heads up, sharps and flats, often you'll have those set in a key signature at the beginning of a song, and they'll be like at the beginning of each line. You won't have sharps and flats together in a key signature. You'll have either flat keys or a key signature with sharps. That's different than the accidental when you see it on your way through the music. So sharps and flats will be used in more than one way. They can be in a key signature, and that's a different lesson for a different day. Or they can occur as accidentals in the music. Same with the natural. That can occur along the way as an accidental. Definitely the accidentals is something that we should try to have an understanding of at this point. Okay. I hope this was helpful. I hope you've got some useful notes, and hopefully I will see you soon.